Hello, it's Paul again from Pull It Apart Paul. I'm just giving you an update on the TEDELEX TE-6000 and where we're at, as it's been a while. I'll just spin it around. Alright, I've got all the parts laid out as to where we're up to, and this section covers the radio, the preparation for faceplate, and the faceplate decals themselves and what I need to do to the faceplate, the tin faceplate. Alright, so this is the radio itself. Now it's a bit different. There's been some progress since I last spoke. The progress has been mainly the installation of the NITRO backlight boards and what I decided to do. Now with these boards you have to be very, very careful with soldering. Oops. And after a few trials and tribulations, what I've decided to do is, after I've soldered the boards on, I've dropped resin on the electrical connections, and that stops any of the tracks being pulled away from the NITRO boards themselves. Secondly, I wasn't happy with the bulk of the wiring loom in front of the displays. It actually stopped the faceplate from being pushed back on properly. So what I've done is drilled 3 strategic holes, they're 4mm holes, in the faceplate, and routed the wires through to the back. Now those wires there at the top are just off the channel selector power, and then underneath I've still got to complete the other 6. Then what I aim to do is put in 2 rectangular red LEDs in between these 2 switches, and a red LED into the signal meter itself. Alright, so that's where we're up to. I can't power them on yet. I've just had other things get in the way of this project. It is involved, but I've also just had other things that I've had to deal with. Alright, so where are we up to with all of the plastics? Well, all of the knobs are complete and sanded and prepared for the undercoat, which is what I use. And if you can remember, it's taken 2 radios to get these knobs, and unfortunately I had to sacrifice a AM radio in order to get the bulk of these. I've still got some cleaning up to do and clear off some of the marks. The faceplate is done and ready, and if you can remember, there was a lot of gouges on the side. I've got them out. The leading edge is nice and sharp. And if you want to see what cigarette smoke does to radios with very, very thin paint, you can see all of this discoloration on the plastic. Well, that comes from cigarette smoke, nicotine. So that's right into the plastic. I've tried to sand out as much of it as possible. It was very, very dark. So the plan is to obviously clean with isopropyl alcohol. That's 100%, as I've discussed previously. And then the sealer that I use is an etching primer sealer. So that's going to take up and seal against the cigarette smoke, affecting the next 2 coats of product that I put on top of it, which is acrylic. So that's how you get rid of it. But you've got to actually do your prep well in order for that not to affect your finished work. And as you can see, the the most used dial here, which is the channel selector, has the most from the fingers. Alright, so that's the display. Hopefully I will be able to get that done today, or after I've shot this video, or maybe even attach it to this video after I've shown you this. Alright, so my choice of supplier for these is a company in Miami. I've mentioned this before, and the name of the company is CAD Graphics. His name is Jim. He does all sorts of graphics for dials, from cars to obviously CB radios. But what I really like about his service is I sent a previous faceplate of that sort to him, and he replicated that exactly. So that just means that for prosperity, there we go. And he hand did all of that, all of the fonts, picked them all, and the layout. So all I do now is I just send him a message, get him to print some off, and then they come to me. Alright, so this is a very thick, glossy vinyl. It's not the normal that you see. This will obviously not discolor. Because it's so thick, it sticks to the faceplate if you prep really well, and looks factory. Okay, so the process from here on is that I sand all the paint and the adhesive off the back. The object is to get a coarse surface on the faceplate to help with extra bonding of the decal. Being that they're UV corrected decals, these are designed for outside, so they're designed for heat and the weather. So I've never ever had any peeling on these faceplates where I have on others. That's just the reality. Alright, I'm going to start sanding. I have two close to new blades, and I'm going to, once sanded, put a bit of I'll be putting the isopropyl alcohol on the surface with a tiny bit of soap to align the faceplate up. Thank you. Okay, faceplate is done. Remember, the most important part of the faceplate is to have no bumps underneath the front panel. The back panel you just need to get as smooth as possible. I'm going to be using double-sided tape to bond that back on again, so that is nice and flat. It just shows remnants of the acid-based adhesive. Alright, that's similar to the adhesive they use on ICs and other things, which each through the copper tracks over many years. Alright, I'll just clean that with some isopropyl alcohol. I'll just to read the sandpaper I'm using 201 grit. White sandpaper. I don't use this is just painter's sandpaper. Great for working on stuff like this, as it's a fine grade and the granules don't come off everywhere, so you get a lot of life out of the sandpaper, and it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of the plastics. This is why I love doing the metal backed front fascias. Alright, so all I've done is I've taken the decal, just sat it behind the display, and with my hobby knife, I've cut exact dimensions around the edge. So when I lay this on the surface, it's going to be spot on. Okay. Okay, the knobs are all cleaned. I did a final finishing sand on them. So I sanded against the first cut so that we've got a cross hatch on there, so there's no straight lines or sand marks on there if any come through the final finishing coat. The main important area that we need to focus on is the tops of the knobs. They need to be absolutely sharp square, so when sanding has to be on a flat surface and the paper tightened. Alright, I'll just put the undercoat on them. Alright, undercoat's done. I've got great coverage. It's settling down. This goes on just like any spray paint, but the beauty of this is that as it dries absolutely perfectly flat. Hence the name on this one, 1600, I think it is, 1500 white, so it's equivalent of the 1500 wet and dry, which is what I want. The top coats are going to be factory silver, and then around about 4 coats with an airbrush, and then I do a clear coat, which will be in satin, and that makes this really pop against the black. Even though this is vinyl, I set this in a mixture of water and about 4 drops of dishwashing detergent and around 100 mils of isopropyl alcohol, just to speed up drying once it's on. Okay, it's on, very easily to do. Now what I need to do is put it between some heavy objects and wait for it to cure. It'll take some time. Alright, I think that's your lot for today, and that's just a step closer in the direction of the full restoration of TEDELEX TE-6000 with upgrades and modifications. Yet to follow are the VCO install and the ICO2A chip holder, which I've done in many other videos. And then the radio will come back together after paint.